Welcome to the 1905 podcast, home of the world champions, Chelsea. Each week, Joe and I bring you our unfiltered takes on the highs, the lows, and everything in between, following the Blues from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes.
The final whistle's just gone. It's Chelsea 1, Brighton and Hove Albion 3. Now, Chris will know this because he's known me a long, long time, that when I almost cannot be bothered to rant and rave, sort of tells you a story about how I think things are going. Yeah, really difficult to know where to start with that. I suppose let's start in the first half and sort of work our way through it, which is going to be not very much fun. But yeah, let's go with it. I mean, it was a fairly bright start. I think both teams started quite brightly. I think, you know, Brighton are never scared to come to the bridge and have a go, and they do leave spaces in behind. And Esteval and João Pedro got on the ball a few times and some lovely little runs and jinks and what have you, but we didn't quite find the final pass. It was all maybe we shot when we should have passed and passed when we should have crossed a couple of times. It was a really, really annoying. But, you know, the team looked bright and quite bubbly. Brighton did come back into the game, and even though they didn't create tons of chances, they still looked threatening. And for some reason, in that yellow kit, they did it last year. Whenever they came forward, I just thought they're going to score in a minute. That's just me with paranoia when it comes to Brighton nowadays. There seems to be lots of teams. It seems to be our bogey club, let's be honest with you. Brentford are our bogey club. Bournemouth are our bogey club. Brighton are our bogey club. Yeah, it's a bit of a pattern emerging, isn't it? But we did make the breakthrough on about 25 minutes when Reece James gets down the right-hand side. Lovely little stood-up cross. And to be fair to Enzo, a player that we've said a few times does get into the box and score the odd goal, well, he turned up and scored a goal today. So, yeah, fair play to him. But as with Chelsea, we didn't make the most of it. We didn't really press on from that moment. We tended to... I'm not saying we sat back as such, but we didn't really go for it. You've got some really good players on the pitch there. We've got 11 against 11. And I just feel as though we play a certain brand of football at times that is just a little bit negative, if I'm being honest with you. And once again, it proved that scoring one goal when you maybe could have had a second or a third at times has been our undoing, because I could spend longer in the first half, but to be honest with you, I just can't be bothered. The second half begins and an atrocious bit of play from Chelsea, shooting ourselves in the foot, and it's just happening week after week. And obviously this time it's André Santos. I mean, I don't really know what he's even doing. It's like someone switched him off as he's running backwards. It's like, is there any power in that player? You know, does he need an energy boost? Then he gives this really half-hearted crap pass back to Trev, which never got there. And, you know, the Brighton forward runs through, and you're thinking, okay, did Trev get some of the ball there? It looked at on the sort of the glance that we had that Trev may have got a toe on that, and I thought, okay, that's just going to be VAR checked. He's going to get enough on the ball and they'll move on. But as you said, the moment the referee put his hands and made that TV screen shape, as it were, that square, you kind of went, okay, this is probably going to be a penalty. And as it come through, one look, I mean, again, the referee needed 14 views. I mean, it needed one, and it was a penalty all day long. I mean, sorry, not a penalty, a free kick, I should say. And obviously a Trev red card, which is absolutely wonderful. And then, once again, we just seemed to bring on a load of defenders and take off Neto once again. So no out ball for the second week running. And Esteval comes off, so no out ball again on the other side for the second week running. And we bring on Lavia and Badiashile and Gusto. And if there's ever been a cameo appearance from Gusto as a substitution that's worse than that, then please, you know, answers on a postcard right here on Instagram. Let us know on email if you thought if Gusto was just so shit. Everything he did. He had a chance before Brighton scored where we got the ball on the halfway line, and he could have driven all the way up the field, and he checked back and went back inside. And I thought, what are you doing? That has to be a tactical thing. Because if you're a marauding fullback, you've got 50 yards of open space in front of you. Why not take it on? Even if you don't get anything out of it, you might get a throw-in down the other end and relieve the pressure off your team. But he came back inside and checked into midfield, and I thought, this is a weird Chelsea team, like very, very weird. And I do think that's tactical, that he's been told to do that, keep hold of the ball, and not stretch the other team and make them go the other way. Oh, goodness me, this is painful to even do, I'll be honest with you. And then we basically just keep giving fouls away. Again, that thing last week, I said it last week, you bring more defenders on, it does not necessarily make you more solid. We've now got Achampong, Badiashile, Gusto and Lavia on the field, and no forward presence yet again for the second week running. And I watched this game on my own today because my family's gone out, so I thought I'd just watch this one. I thought it would be a half decent game. Obviously, it turned into a nightmare after half time, and you just knew it was coming. And Brighton obviously whip a ball in. Forgive me because I can't remember if it was a free kick or a corner, but I think it was a corner whipped in, and players at the back post just completely unmarked. Nobody marking in the midfield. You've got 3 centre backs on there, and nobody is willing to stand by their man and just head the ball away. If they're all marking zonally and what have you, it's just dreadful. It's absolutely pathetic. Chelsea just cannot defend set pieces, and that's a fact. We look horrendous at them, and quite frankly, the team's going nowhere fast at this rate. I was getting upset more than I was getting annoyed. I'm actually quite upset with how it's happened and how this sort of week and a half has played out, because it's not going to get any better, I can assure you, with Benfica and Liverpool coming up. And even though Benfica are on a fantastic team and not having a fantastic time with Mourinho, you just know they're going to stifle the game out of it, and they'll probably get a point or knock us off as well in the Champions League, so that'll be fantastic. But as I say, go back to the game, as it's rumbling on, you're thinking, well, we're not going to score because we don't even look like getting into their half, let alone score a goal. And they just walk through again, and Danny Welbeck just toe pokes it into the near post for a third goal. And quite frankly, as a fan, when you've just about had enough of what you're seeing, I don't know about anybody else, you can rant and rave, you can shout and scream, but it's that thing, Chris, you made a great saying last week. It's like when your mum says, I'm disappointed in you. It felt a bit like that. I just kind of was just a little bit sad, honest, at the way it's all unravelling. It's only early in the season, and I know it's, I don't want to come here and sort of be a little bit jump the gun, but I'm not seeing anything. I've not been impressed with the games that we've won this season, which hasn't been many. I've not been impressed with the 2 draws that we've had. We haven't had a particularly difficult start to the season in terms of big fixtures. We've got all the big teams to play, pretty much home and away. Man United is not a good team. Brentford have knocked them off 3-1 today. It is troubling. It's really troubling. And Chris and I had a chat off pod just after the Lincoln game last week, and I think deep down we probably do share some concerns about what we're seeing. We thought it was going to be a really fun, exciting season, and that squad has clearly got talent in it. But it's really difficult when you go down to 10 men, because you're sort of having a pop at the manager when it's not necessarily all down to him. Sanchez coming out and clattering Mbeumo last week in 4 minutes, and then Trev getting sent off on the 8th minute today or something. That's not down to him, but everything else is, and what you see before it and the previous games. And at the moment, we're in a real poor state of mind. The team looks devoid of all confidence. There's no real hunger, no real passion. Where's that gone? People will argue that the Club World Cup was a glorified friendly tournament, but we know certain teams are taking it seriously. But we don't have that state of mind, it seems. It's completely evaporated from the side, and I'm just bitterly disappointed. I'll be honest, I'm not really looking at the league table. I know where we are. I know where we're going to be. Bang middle somewhere. And quite frankly, I really worry about this season for Chelsea. And there'll be those that will say, if you win a game, you can jump up to 4th. Great. I don't care. This team has had too much money spent on it. Too many players kind of in and out of the side to be hoping that a win takes you 4th or 5th. And yeah, it's just very depressing, unfortunately. And I don't feel good about it at the moment. I was looking forward to this season immensely, and I don't expect Chelsea to win every game. I've said that before. I don't expect Chelsea to be a team that blows everybody away and plays scintillating football every single week. I expect them to be a winning team, have a know-how, have an experience, but yet again, just too many experienced players out there. There's just so many poor performances in that second half, and when the chips are down, just people going mental. Caicedo's trying to kick everybody. Reece is trying to kick everybody. And why is Reece going down there? I've got to pull that up, by the way. Why is Reece going down, diving in the box for a penalty, when he's got an opportunity to whip the ball across the box or even shoot himself? And that was really poor on Reece's part. And as captain, he needs to look at himself there. That's bloody awful. I realise no one really wants to come onto a podcast or listen to a podcast which is a little bit downbeat and a little bit dour. But look, that's what we're dealing with at the moment, and I can't change that. The club is not in a good position. It's not in a good place. The manager seems all over the place, making poor decisions quite frequently, and you have to call the stuff out. You can't say he's doing really well when he's doing well, and then just say he's still a good manager or doing well when he's doing badly, quite frankly. The two don't go hand in hand, and Chris and I would never come in here and lie. If we think something's going wrong or something's not right, we'll say it isn't. And at the moment, just going to go for a long walk with my son in a minute, I think, and just talk about something different, because football is just really depressing when it comes to Chelsea at the moment. And not been a fun season so far. It's looking just looking a little bit second rate, to be honest. And I'm just going to say it again because I feel like I want to. Until this team has some fucking experience running through it, they are going to go nowhere fast. I cannot understand for the life of me why we have got no experience in this team. Just absolutely baffles me. And we talk about Sanchez, we talk about the two centre-backs, we've talking about the full-backs in some cases, not Reece and Cucurella, but the sort of the backup versions there. We've spoken about other players as well. But when Trev got sent off, I don't know about anybody else, but I was not looking around that team and going, he's going to pull us out of this. That one there, him, that player, just devoid of anyone that's going to get you a goal, get you a performance. Caicedo's probably about the only one in the team that I think to myself there, he'll do something. He'll win a tackle and put a good pass through, or he'll make a goal line clearance or something. He's that sort of player. But just about everybody else in that team today, looking around at Sanchez thinking he ain't going to bail you out. Badiashile, he's not going to bail you out. Ashampong's a kid. Hato went off, sorry, to be fair. Neto was off the field. Estelle was off the field. João Pedro, possibility, but I don't think so. I think he needs players around him to make him look a better player himself. I didn't think Reece or Cucurella played particularly well today. Reece, decent cross for the goal, but I didn't think he was particularly great. Got beat a lot on the outside. He looked a little bit not unfit, that's the wrong word, but maybe just didn't. Maybe he has lost a yard of pace, and against a team like Brighton who just constantly at you, he just didn't have it today. And everybody else, in midfield, Enzo, no. Lavia, no. Sorry, it's a long leg, guys. I do apologise, but just really disappointed, really sad. I know everybody else is probably feeling the same, and it just feels like bullshit at the moment. The club is going absolutely, the team, club, whatever you want to call it, is going nowhere fast. And at this rate, even after 6 games of the season, you can just see a pattern developing. I said to Chris, again off pod, that I didn't think we'd win today. I didn't think we'd win. And obviously winning 1-0, I thought we were doing okay. We weren't doing really well. We were doing all right. And you're thinking, you probably could see out a 1-0. I think it would be okay. But obviously the moment Trevor went off, I just really got concerned. And yet again, we've been done by Danny Welbeck, 55-year-old Danny Welbeck coming in to score a brace and make us look really, really stupid. It's just, you got Hertzler, young manager from the other side, who's just all out attack, go, go, go. If we're not careful, we are going to turn into the Brighton model, which is just buy a player, does quite well, sell player for a profit. And that's not really going to achieve fuck all when it comes to Chelsea Football Club. So, it's a lot of answers for the owners, really. A lot of answers for Maresca after that. The players need questioning, quite frankly. You won't get any answers out of any of them, quite frankly. But, not a good day. Yet again, we've been taken to the cleaners by another Premier League team. And like I say, too many bogey clubs against all these sides that, you expect for us to go and wallop. Sadly, we don't beat Arsenal anymore. We don't beat Man City anymore. We don't beat Bournemouth. We don't beat Brighton. And even though I think we've got a good team, squad in principle and good young players, you're in danger of becoming a bit of a laughing stock if you're not able to put wins together against these sorts of sides on a regular basis, which we can't seem to do. That's 3 defeats in a row now against Brighton, 2 away from home last season, won the FA Cup and the league, and now the league again for Chelsea. So, yeah, really disappointing yet again. And I suppose I better leave it at that.
I just had a big puff of air even starting this voice note, to be honest, because it feels like a bit of a dark day. It's a dark situation, isn't it? And we don't want to be too over the top, but it does feel like this could very quickly untangle, and this season could, I mean, it arguably already has gone south, but it could get worse. Like you, Joe, I was worried about the game today. I said it, didn't I, in the preview sort of note, saying that it felt like a really important game and I was really nervous about it. So 1-0 at half time, and I was sort of still nervous, but thinking this is really important. We've got to win this. And again, you've summed up what happened in the game, Joe, really well. So I don't have a huge amount to add there. All I'd say is, I mean, if Maresca did have any hair, then he'd be pulling it out, wouldn't he, at the moment, at what we're doing, because criticism of him will come and is fair, without a doubt, and we'll talk about that. But in both of the moments in the last 2 games, which have been absolutely pivotal, that's not down to the manager. The red card incident itself, it's worth saying, I think, that it was actually really a bit unlucky and bad timing how it all starts, because it comes from Reece James having to go off with his ankle roll. So he's obviously come off the pitch. Andrew Santos goes in at right back, makes a terrible mistake, which ends up in his last kick of the game, which a bit harsh, but at this point I'm thinking he's been a bit of a positive. Makes a big mistake, and then Maresca's pulling his hair out of that already. And then the one thing I'd say about Trev, and again, the whole incident is clearly not Trev Chalobah's fault at all, but in exactly the same situation as we kind of felt about Rob Sanchez last week, maybe just don't make the foul. Take the goal or take the shot. He's still got to beat Sanchez 1-on-1. Again, let him have the shot. Let him be in, and it's 1-1. You're 11v11. Obviously, he's gone for the ball. Fair enough. If he got a bit of the ball, he nearly did. Didn't he? If he got the ball, it's a great tackle. He's a hero, and he's got to make a split-second decision. But I just wonder if, again, just a little bit of just calm at that point in time. And again, as soon as it went 11v10, your head was in your hands, wasn't it, really? And I'm just going to speak as a fan. It's just pretty depressing, isn't it, to watch? It's okay, just as a fan, like the United game I said last week, really looking forward to that game. It's basically becomes a bit of a non-event after 4 minutes. And then again today, you just knew, I think, that we wouldn't hold on. We've got a great guest note from Roland coming up in a second, and he talks a bit about some of the problems he saw on the pitch. But you just felt it. You just felt that it was inevitable. And like you say, Danny Welbeck, the second he came on, I was like, oh, here we go. This is perfect. You knew he'd have his moment. Even when we were probably lucky, weren't we, with the penalty incident on Gusto. It was just before they scored the second. He basically kicked him in the head. You could see on his face, I don't know if you saw his reaction. He was like, oh, whoopsie. And yeah, just once again, very, very, very hard watching Chelsea. I mean, all season long it has been. I've harped back a couple of times to the 2 pre-season games that we saw at the Bridge. But the reason I do is that I really felt, and I think we felt, and we talked about it if you go back to our pre-season preview episode, we felt really, really positive about this season. You felt like there was a really good momentum, obviously, after the summer, after the end of the season. And in those 2 games, there was a feeling. There was like that feeling about the Bridge. You were like, there's a feel good. There's a buzz in the air. Like before that first game against Palace, and maybe that Palace game, there were a few warning signs, but just the feeling about the Bridge was there was just an optimism. And how quickly it's turned is a little bit staggering, actually. And I think part of me is struggling a little bit to process it, if that makes sense. It feels a bit like grief for the season, which feels probably a little bit reckless to even say. It's only 6 games played, isn't it, in the Prem? But the problem, I think, and we'll come on to talk more about this, is that it's hard to see the light and how this turns around quickly. And yeah, I'm going to talk more about that. But just to finish a couple of points on the game itself. Again, as you said, Joe, you would have thought he got quite a lot of stick, Maresca, last week after the United game. He would have had a lot of time to think about maybe what he would have done differently down to 10 men. And what was worrying is he did basically the same again. Didn't do it quite as quickly, quite as rash, but effectively we did go to a back 5 in the end. It did feel like, eventually we took off all the pace and any kind of ball over the top and out. But it very much felt like, we're not going to try and score a goal now. We're going to try and defend. And you knew it would be over 100 minutes played. So it just felt too long. I think if there was 15, 20 minutes to go, you'd go, go on then. Let's just pat the box and see if we can get away with this. But there was just so long in the game that as soon as you'd eventually taken Esteban and Neto off, you thought, well, that's it now, isn't it? And I'm not going to criticise Enzo Fernandez at all, but because I can see why he stays on the pitch because of his running and his stamina, and he doesn't stop moving. But you're thinking, watching him off João Pedro, you're like, well, this is pointless because neither of them. João Pedro wants to come to the ball. Enzo always wants it to feet. There's no willing runner to knock a ball in, and I think we were going long from the back, understandably from Rob Sanchez. It was sensible. We saw why for the third goal, why that was a sensible move. But, it's kind of like, I was thinking, if you do want to take those guys off because they're tired, it's Garnacho or Mark Guiu kind of game, isn't it? Just to be a willing runner and push them back into their own half. But much like the United game in the first half last week, as soon as we went down to 10 men, we basically didn't touch the ball. It didn't leave our half, did it, really? And I just think so many teams you've seen with 10 men play better than we have in the last 2 games. It's hard, of course it is, but we've made it look really hard. And that part of the game has to be on Maresca. Again, not blaming him for the 2 sort of incidents itself, because how can you? But the response to them is infuriating. And then having gone 2-1 down, obviously late on as we did, what was really frustrating, again, just as a fan really, is where was that kind of, again, decisions on the pitch or decisions on the side. You can't make a sub. I think we'd use the 3 allocations of times you can make subs, so we couldn't bring players on. But why not go, right, Badiashile, you're up top, or Reece James, you go up down the middle. We're just going to pump a few balls in the box and see what we do, because Brighton have put on a load of attackers, so we can see if we can just potluck something out of this. But we didn't change anything. So again, it's almost like we'd given up. And there was still, 10 minutes to play? It just felt like we gave up. And bar that sort of Reece James' little run in, as you say, dive, at 2-1 we didn't do anything. Went 3-1, and then obviously Enzo has his header at the end. But it just real basics just felt frustrating. And it's like, yeah, again, that's on the players on the pitch, and it's got to be on Enzo on the side just to kind of give up. I don't want to talk, I don't think, personally about the game too much because it's just, you said it all, Joe, and it was hard. It's a really hard watch at the moment, watching Chelsea. It's not fun. We've not a single game this season has been fun to watch. I'd say there was probably about 45 minutes worth of the West Ham game where we played well. After a bad first 20 minutes and a bad last 25 minutes, really, we played well for that middle part of that game against probably the worst team in the league, as they've been so far this season. And apart from that, we've been dreadful. We've really been that bad. And yeah, it's really, really worrying because you've only got to look at what Spurs and Man United did in the league last year to see that you can very easily, even with a very good squad and a good side and lots of good players, finish very close to the bottom of the league. And, you know, I'm not saying that's where it's going to go, but something has to change. I mentioned it earlier. I'm going to hand over to Roland for his view on what he thought was severely lacking in the game today. And then I'll come back to talk about, you know, where we go from here. Oh, it's not fun, is it?
Hey guys, thanks for having me back on. The match has just finished and I've just opened a beer and feeling very disappointed, obviously. I know there's loads of different things to talk about, but I just thought I'd sort of zero in on kind of the leadership issue in the team, which is, I actually just now think it's just a joke that, you know, Reece James is our captain. That may be an unpopular opinion because he's proper Chelsea and all that stuff. But if you listen to him in an interview or press conference, like he is one of the most boring people I've ever heard in my life. So there's no chance that is a guy who is like a reference point for the team that, you know, they're listening to, who can get their blood going before a game, or who can talk when things are going badly in a game, when we've just conceded or when we've just had someone sent off, who can kind of, you know, huddle the players together and remind them of what, you know, keep your heads, this is what we need to do. When something bad happens, what does Reece do? Like, he scowls a bit, he looks at his feet, and then, you know, jogs back to right back. It's a joke. And that's not a criticism of him, it's a criticism of the club for choosing him or putting him in that position. But the problem we have is that there's nobody else either in the team who would probably do a better job, because and it comes back to recruitment. And we've, ever since Jorginho left, Rudiger, like, those were the last two players probably that had a bit of that in them. But yeah, there's nobody who is a sort of a convincing reference point who will be that manager on the pitch, you know, the manager's kind of lieutenant, the manager's representative on the pitch. I think it is hard I know that Maresca is going to get pelters because that's just the way things go. It's like, you know, you play the manager, he's the easiest person to fire. But yeah, I do think that the squad has just not been built with any eye on personality, leadership, those kind of sort of quality, those more intangible qualities. You know, we know that sporting directors love their data. We know that they are obsessed with kind of, you know, the underlying metrics. But there are other things. Football isn't played on paper, like it's played on grass, and you need minimum one, ideally more players who can be that sort of a calm head when, you know, when less mentally strong players are sort of losing their heads. And yeah, we just don't have that, and it's really frustrating that they haven't recruited for that sort of quality. And it's frustrating that the only player that I can really think of in the squad who maybe has a bit of that about them is actually Levi. And obviously he's injured for the season. He was kind of emerging in the second half of last season, I thought, into a bit of a leader. It's tough for him sometimes because, you know, his form does go up and down a bit, and it's difficult to be that guy if you've just made the mistake that's led to the goal. But overall, I felt that he was kind of emerging into that sort of leadership type character. And actually, if you listen, and again, I go back to, like, the only way that we can judge their personalities a bit on when we listen to them and when they're talking to camera and stuff. And he's actually quite a sort of an articulate and interesting person to talk to, and has a bit of like steel about him. And I think that that's a bit, you know, you can, and you know, let's go back to, like, you know, the kind of the prototype of this character, right? It's John Terry. You can listen to John Terry talk about football for hours, like listen to him on a podcast or whatever. Like, he's interesting about football, and he's kind of compelling to listen to. And like, you need a captain who has a bit of that about them. And yeah, sorry to say, Reece James, he does seem like a nice guy, but, like, you know, he should not be put in the position of being expected to be a captain. Enzo's the other captain, I guess, isn't he, really? Because he plays probably more than half the games, given Reece's kind of the way he gets protected, so to speak. Don't think Enzo even speaks English, does he? I mean, again, no shade, but if you're going to be a captain, you need to be able to communicate with the team. And I've never heard him even do an interview or a press conference, I don't think. So yeah, he does that sort of thing where, like, you know, he likes to get into a bit of a fight, bit of snarling, get stuck in. But again, who's getting players in a huddle when things are going against us and sort of getting us back on the right track and being that manager on the field? Like, we just don't have that. And so as much as Maresca is going to get the pelters, I do feel that he has been given a squad that lacks a very key kind of component, a key characteristic that all successful teams usually have. Anyway, I'm sure you'll deal with all the other myriad of issues facing us, but just thought I would highlight that one today because it's one that I've been going on for a while, and I don't see how or when that's going to change, unfortunately.
Hey, it's Chris here with a really quick message. Check us out on Instagram at 1905podcast. You'll find video clips, photos, and much more about everything we discuss on the show. Plus, it's a great way to get in touch to tell us your thoughts, share your feedback, or just say hi. Follow us on Instagram at 1905podcast. And now, back to the show.
Good afternoon, mate. I hope your football went well today. I certainly hope it went a lot better than Chelsea did yesterday, because goodness me, it could have got much worse, could it, that second half? I think it's difficult when you wake up after a defeat like this, and I've been thinking about it overnight a little bit as well, and how Chelsea are playing and how they're kind of managing this run of games that we've had since Brentford, where we managed to somehow throw away a win in the last minute of the game just through purely not marking some of the back posts. Is basic football fundamentals. But I think I watched a guy in the crowd yesterday at Chelsea. I think it was the third goal that went in, or maybe the second goal, and they panned to Maresca, and there was a guy sitting behind him, and he looked about my age, and he just looked so despondent. He didn't look angry, just looked sort of sitting there shaking his head, mouth closed, just thinking, what the bloody hell have I just watched in that second half? And it's exactly how I felt, to be honest. And I think what's really disappointing with us is not how the season's gone as such, it's how we're playing. Everybody saw us playing in the Club World Cup. Okay, maybe not every single game, particularly at the beginning, but as the games went along and you started getting to the semi-finals and the finals, and even Benfica to some degree, we really sort of put the hammer down, played a little bit more direct. We had these flying wingers, and Calma stepped up in the final and played fantastically well. And, you know, we played with purpose and energy, and we're far from that at the moment. I think in the first half we did yesterday, it was okay at times for 20-minute spells, but it's never for prolonged periods. We can't seem to pen a team back. And you saw Brighton, once they got on top of us, they just put the hammer down, and they kept going and going and going. And even though it was only 1-1 for a period, they didn't go, oh, we've got a point at Chelsea. They were thinking, no, we're going to get another one. We're going to go and get a second and a third if we can. And they did. And I find with Chelsea that we just put the handbrake on. I think you said it, Chris. We don't look to play. If we're 1-0 up, we try and sit on 1-0. And it's really hard when you're not very good at the back. I can assure you, your defenders will be thinking great things of you if you can go and get a second and a third, because it just makes the other team, they might go a little bit gung-ho at that point, but it's going to leave enormous gaps in behind for you to capitalise and kind of go and get yourself a fourth or a fifth even. A bit like West Ham in some ways. But at the moment, we're just playing such drab football yet again. It feels like the start of Maresca's reign, not the end. Which is a bit disappointing, but I don't really want to come on here and slag off the manager and slag off the team as such, because no, they're not playing well. No, the manager's not behaving in a way that you would expect of an elite manager, which maybe he is, maybe he isn't. We're not going to find out at this stage. But there were some positives yesterday in the game. You know, I thought that Santos, barring the error that led to the goal, I thought he had a very productive first half, and he had lots of bite in his tackle. He was winning the ball back very high. There was a couple of times in the corner flag where he didn't let players out and he put a sliding tackle in, and it got the crowd up. And I thought, that's what we need. We need a little bit of that. When you're not playing very well, you need someone to be that kind of ringleader and do those things. I thought that Esteval, before he was pulled off in the first half, looked really busy, looked really exciting. He's sort of come into a team that's a bit low on confidence and low on its star players, i.e. Palmer, Delap, Colwell, etc. And so we don't look as solid as we were, which is kind of giving him a problem, because we're almost saying to a teenage boy from Brazil that's only been in the country a few months, go and be the star player and get us out of this mess, which is a very hard thing to do, particularly in the Premier League. But I thought he was bright and bubbly, and his jinking runs and the way he could nutmeg players and get the other side. Again, I think his decision making instead was slightly off. He could have definitely passed it a couple of times when he shot, but equally, it's hard to criticise a player that does something so well, and you just know the next time he goes through, he would have learned from that mistake and kind of rectified it, and he will find the right pass. So I'm not worried about him too much. I thought that Caicedo was a raw plus. I thought his game overall was very, very good. He got a bit rash towards the end because I think he was getting a hump. Obviously, Brighton's his old team, and they're probably giving him a little bit of stick. But overall, he won a lot of fouls. He was breaking up the play like he always does, and he was trying to run the show by himself. In not so much the whole of the second half, but when the game went to 1-1, we were trying to get the winner. Even though we didn't really look like scoring, he was the one that was trying to drive us forward, which I thought was a positive. Equally, Hato actually had quite a good game. I didn't feel he was too much out of place. Again, once we went down to 10 men, we look inexperienced, and you've got Hato, Achampong. Yes, it's not ideal, is it? And it's so scary when you look at it from the outside, because you're like, we've been saying this for ages. What happens if this happens? And it's all happened. All the things that we said that might come true have come true. And of course, we can't keep 10 men on the pitch. Chris sent me a stat yesterday, which was our last 4 defeats have all been when we've been down to 10 men. Is it Flamengo in the Club World Cup? There was Newcastle before that. Obviously Manchester United last week and Brighton yesterday. So it goes to show you that we're not very adaptable, which is something we're going to need to improve if we're going to get any better. What are my expectations for this season? They've definitely dropped, massively dropped. I'm at my sister's house today by the coast, and it's very nice to get away from. I was talking about Chelsea, I'm doing it now, but kind of thinking about Chelsea. But I'm watching the Aston Villa game, Fulham game, and Villa look terrible. There's a lot of teams in this league that aren't playing very well. But I think my expectations for the season I think we are in a top 6 battle. I don't see us as a top 4. We're definitely not a top 4 guarantee. That is for sure. We are miles away from being that. So I think you're probably looking at us as a top 6, top 7, which is what we were last year. So improvement-wise, are we going to improve? I'm going to suggest no, we're not. Last year was a bit of a free hit for Maresca. It didn't really matter where he finished. Now, I know people will say he had it at the Champions League. I don't think he did. But I feel as though this year, if we continue to play in this way and we keep getting similar results, even when we've got 11 players on the field, I do not believe the fans are going to give him the same grace as he got last season. And this is not Chris or I saying that we think Maresca is going to get sacked in a month, or we want him sacked. Chris, made a very good point that, to me privately, that he doesn't want to go through this transfer manager merry-go-round year after year after year. I feel the same. What I would say about that is you can't keep backing a donkey. And I'm not saying that Maresca is a donkey, but what I mean is after a period of time you go, well, are we in the Graham Potter stakes here? Or is this guy going to be good enough to get himself out of it? Well, it's sink or swim time now. He needs to provide some kind of evidence that he can do a lot better than he's doing currently, because it's pretty drab. Everybody will be thinking about Benfica this week, and then we have Liverpool obviously at the weekend, and a defeat at Benfica wouldn't be worth thinking about, because it's going to really put your Champions League place in the next round under scrutiny. And then if you were to somehow not play well at the weekend, and we're going to have a very patched up back 4 by the looks of it. I know Trev, of course, if you were to get the worst was to happen there, he lost at home again to Liverpool, then people are going to start asking questions, and that's just how football is. Again, that's just a way. It's just a way of life. It's nothing to do with us, and nothing to do with the way that we think. It's just what happens in football. There already will be rumours of, this player doesn't like him because Maresca said this about him, and all these little stories will start leaking. Whether they're true or not true, it'll just be one of those things that happens. So if Chelsea are going to do anything this season, they are going to have to start pulling these results around, because we are looking like a team that's really just sort of hanging on to the coattails of everybody else that is in the top 6 and top 7. And that does include the likes of Fulham. It does include the likes of Bournemouth and Brighton, Tottenham. These are all teams that are playing, in my opinion, way better than us. So add into that the Champions League campaign. With tough fixtures midweek, you're going to get a lot more fatigue in the players' legs. So that is something they're going to have to deal with. And I think Chelsea is a pressure cooker, as we know. Once it can start to go wrong, it will just go bang. There's no gentle trickle and let's see what happens. A lot of the time it's not working. Smash, we get a new manager in. Now, obviously, the new owners said they wouldn't do this. They said they wouldn't keep changing the manager. They want to keep stability. But how long do you keep it going if a manager can't play good football and he's not getting good results playing bad football? If you were winning every week, 1-0, 2-1, and the football was a bit drab, the fans will put up with it for a very good reason, that they're winning games. But they won't be saying to themselves in the pub, "I really enjoyed that today." So there is an element of the managers of these teams to play a certain brand of football, and he will argue that Palmer's not playing. He will argue that Delap's not playing, and one or two others, etc. But when you're Chelsea, you've spent a lot of money, and you've got a lot of players in and out. The sympathy doesn't really hang around. It certainly doesn't hang around from opposition teams. They just look at us as this kind of mad team that constantly changes their players all the bloody time. And, you're trying to get a better player for this player, etc. And we can talk about the positives of a new signing, so Pedro Neto, João Pedro, Caicedo, etc., whatever it might be. But it's no good delivering for a couple of weeks and having a month off. You have to compete at 7.5, 8 out of 10 every single week for Chelsea. Because anyone who comes to the Bridge, or anybody that plays us at home, like Brentford last week, raises their game for you. Because they look at us like this arrogant, smug team that's prepared to go and spend 50 million on this player and 40 million pound on that player and don't care. They're almost like, to hell with the rules a little bit. So people always raise their game against us. It's just a given. And I just hope that we don't fall into a trap where Maresca thinks that it's okay that at the weekend a point's a good result against Liverpool. Now, on the face of it, it probably is. But if we sit back in a negative way and just get ourselves picked off like we did yesterday, yet again, then everybody's going to just start saying you don't know what you're doing. You keep bringing off all your forward players and your wide wingers, all the players that you bought in the summer, you just keep bringing them off all the time and putting more defenders on. I mean, it's just not really acceptable. He has to be very, very careful the way he goes about his next few fixtures, because anything but a win against Benfica is going to put the cat amongst the pigeons. And like I say, that Liverpool game at home next weekend is now looking really, really dangerous. Because I think a few weeks ago, Chris and I would have said, look, really looking forward to that game. Really good fixture. Let's see where we are. We kind of know where we are now. That's the sad thing. We haven't got weights at Liverpool. We kind of know we're a bit bang average. And not so much that the team is all bang average, but we are playing bang average football. Because at the moment, no one really seems to want to take the game by the scruff of the neck. And Roland's right when he speaks about Reece and a few other players. I've said it many times. There's no experience in the team. There's no one that's willing to put their head above the parapet and drag us through games. We had that with Drogba. We had it with Terry and Lampard and Robin and whoever it might have been. We've had players in the past who are prepared to go and do the dirty work and prepared to go and do something different. Like yesterday, I want to see Pedro Neto just absolutely just break the rules. Break the rules and go past somebody. Try and beat 3 players. If you get the hook, fucking who cares? He takes you off anyway after freaking 45 minutes. So just go and do something that kind of will make you stand out, make the crowd go, why are you taking him for? Boo, we want to see Pedro. At the moment, people are a bit like, who cares? I just think we're very much in a situation at the moment that people want to believe in Maresca. They want to believe in this team. They want to believe in the owners to some degree, and some don't. I understand that. But it's very hard when every single week that we play, nothing really seems to be changing or improving. And Chris or I don't want to be nearly negatives at all, but we have to call out what we see. We can't come on here and lie to people and say that we were really pleased with what we saw yesterday, because we weren't. You know, we're not going to just defend a manager or an ownership that is, at the moment, floundering, because they are. They've let us down in the transfer window with the players they bought. They didn't invest in a goalkeeper or a centre-back, which is blindingly obvious, and you could see it from a mile off. You know, you didn't have to be someone that was a Chelsea fan to tell you that we needed a goalkeeper and a centre-back. It was everyone that I know is telling me this, and they support different teams. And Chris and I have been banging this drum for a while. They need to come out and actually speak. It'd be really good to hear from them. Hear from the ownership group, hear from Bowley or Egbali or Winstanley or Stewart, and kind of give us an idea of what the bloody hell you're doing and what you want from this. Because if it's going to be a money-making machine turnover, then, you know, we know what to expect to some degree, but we're not Brighton. I feel like we're copying a model that Brighton have, which is really successful. They get players in for very, very low fees, relatively speaking, and then they sell them on for massive profit, and then they go and get another load of players from another league at lowish transfer fees again, and then sell them on again and again, and it just keeps happening. You can't keep buying players from Brighton and then keep getting beaten by them. I mean, it's embarrassing. It's really embarrassing, and I really hope that this week is a lot different, and we're coming on here after Liverpool next week with a victory against Benfica and a victory against Liverpool, because I'm not going to say anything less than that we'll do, because obviously if we do draw Liverpool, then so be it, but it's not going to move us to the league anytime soon. And a defeat in the Champions League is going to cause real ripples across Chelsea. So it's a big week for Maresca. Again, we said it last week, but it's a massive week this week now. And let's hope that he's got something up his sleeve and some kind of tactical plan, because at the moment we're not seeing enough of it.
It's a big 6 or 7 games, isn't it, for Maresca? I don't think there's any real doubt about that. You look at, obviously, the week you talked about ahead, Joe, which would be before the international break, but then we come back, you've got Forest away, then Ajax at home and Sunderland at home, who obviously started well, before you then go to Spurs. And you kind of look at that set of games and think, not that the season's defined by them, but if we don't see something from Maresca, he's going to clearly be in trouble. And what I want to see is some flexibility, I think, whether that's in personnel or the way that we play. What I think we can all start to appreciate in the cold light of day today is that we have a few issues in the squad, mainly caused through injury. I don't think anyone can really question that. We've been unlucky that these key injuries have come at the same time. You can criticise the sporting directors, which I'm sure some will. I probably have a little bit of that in myself. But clearly these key injuries have cost us. We've now got basically hardly any centre-backs. So what you want to look for is, can we see a bit of flexibility? Will he do something different? I have to say, like you said about the team selection yesterday, as soon as I saw, again, first half, I was watching Hato thinking he looks great. Really comfortable on the ball, composed. I thought this is encouraging. I thought it was really good to see Santos in there with Caicedo. I think that, for me, is such a shame the way it ended, because obviously immediately Santos got brought off. But up until that point, we just looked a lot more in control of the game, didn't we? And I personally would love to see either Santos or Lavia. Obviously, he did come on and he's kind of back now, alongside Caicedo, at least for a while, and just for us to look a little bit more solid and put some extra legs alongside Caicedo in there. Let's see some bravery. Let's see something different in terms of the setup from Maresca. I think that's what I'm looking for, and it's probably why, again, I think maybe I certainly hark back to the World Club Cup probably too much, but what was the biggest thing for me about that tournament was that we did look different. We'd message each other and other people on the WhatsApp group that were on with Chelsea, just say, "Oh, I like this version of Maresca. I like this Enzo. He's being bold. We're playing on the front foot. He's trying different things." And it does feel at the moment, certainly the way we started the season, the personnel mix and matches a little bit, as we know, but actually the way we play, it's the same old, isn't it? It's very much, everyone knows how we're going to play before you start the game. One of the fullbacks is going to invert into midfield. One of them's going to tuck in to make a back three. That's the way he does it. And I kind of feel like teams have worked us out a little bit. And if everyone's not on the top of their game, which clearly we haven't been this season, we're quite easy to play against, I think. You end up knowing how we're going to try and build up from the back. And yeah, I think that's what I'm looking for. I think that's what we have to see from him is a plan B, a plan C, and some sort of variety in what we do. Because, again, if we don't see that, going to that big Spurs game in November, if that result goes the wrong way, then I think there will be pressure on him. You know, it's building, isn't it? So we need to see something in the next few games, and the personnel isn't going to massively change. We know that nothing's going to be done certainly until January, but even with injured players, it's going to be tricky. So what else can we do? And this is where you earn your money, isn't it, as a manager? So that's the first part I wanted to talk about. The second thing, just very briefly on what Roland said about the leadership, which again, I do agree with. We all absolutely love Reece as a player. I don't think there's any question there. He's absolutely world-class in his day. He's absolutely brilliant. But you hark back to the summer, and again, we've strongly linked to Mike Mannion and obviously Mark Gay as well. And as much as we were really, I was really excited about them as players in key positions, at goalkeeper and centre-back, that I thought we needed, even as much as that was the fact that they were really two leaders. Mike Mannion, captain of AC Milan, Mark Gay, captain of Crystal Palace. They would have come in and really helped Reece and the rest of that group. Reece would have still worn the armband, I don't think there's any question there, but the fact that you've got two guys like that in the starting lineup to really help run that team, I just think would have been massive. And, you know, there are still rumours around that we might look at those guys either in January or in the summer, both who contracts end next summer. So let's see what happens there. But again, it sort of feels blindingly obvious that those are the kind of characters that you need in the dressing room, right? So I'll finish on I guess my feelings from yesterday again, and where we go from here. As Joe knows, bit of a behind the scenes on the podcast, I did send another follow-up voice note after my one yesterday, which was quite emotional, probably, in terms of gutted about where the season's going and maybe questioning, you know, the transfer window, the sporting model, and to be honest, I listened back to it this morning. I thought, yeah, it's too far. You know, I think it's an emotional reaction after the game, the disappointment that I think probably quite a few of us had yesterday. Sober light of day, you look at it and go, right, as we've seen in this weekend already, there's a lot of teams that you'd expect to have won haven't won this weekend. It's very early in the season. There's a long way to go. And, you know, we're going to need to be patient, I think, as fans as well, as much as we can. There's a lot of new players still finding their feet. As Joe said earlier, we take the Bayern Munich game out of the equation, where they were the better side. 4 of the last 5 defeats have come with 10 men. And all of those red cards were not only kind of brain-dead moments in one way or the other, but also absolutely key, pivotal moments of the game. So often you have a game with a red card and it's kind of late on in the game, isn't it? Maybe 10 minutes to go, or you've already lost the game. But the fact that all 4 of those games where we've had key red cards has come at the game either being level or Chelsea being ahead, just shows how pivotal it's been. And maybe, again, on reflection, you have to have a bit of sympathy for Maresca. Again, I don't think we're massively loving the way he's handled the last 2 incidents of it, but as a general challenge, yeah, it has to have an effect, and you just kind of hope that we're having this kind of crazy period now, getting out of the way and hopefully come out the other side. Mourinho's return on Tuesday. It'd be interesting to see what sort of reception he gets back at the Bridge. I think time will be kind to Mourinho at Chelsea, and what I mean by that is, I think when he retires and comes back in 10, 20 years' time, he'll be a legend again. It'll be legendary status, and he's probably the moment he went to Man United, he probably ended his chance of this, and certainly Spurs put a nail in the coffin. But in a different world, there was a time when he would have had a statue at Stamford Bridge. That was how big a legacy he created when he first came to the club, and the impact he had on the club. He obviously came back the second time, won the league again. He was certainly one of the most impactful figures that I've ever known as a Chelsea fan, and he was the special one for a period of time, and he really was. He really was. He really gave us an X factor that the club needed at that point of time, made us winners, and really instilled a DNA in the club that even through the turmoil of over the last 20 years, ups and downs that we've had, has really remained. And when you look back, it's 21 years since he first set foot and had that special one press conference. So it's kind of an incredible amount of time. I think my gut feeling is his reception will be warm on Tuesday, and as always, it depends how the game is going. If Chelsea are winning 2-0, 3-0 with 20 minutes to go, wouldn't be surprised if we hear a Jose Mourinho chant go around the ground. If it's 2-0 the other way, it may be a sit-down Mourinho or similar kind of words sung. That's kind of just the nature of being a football fan and the theatre of the game, isn't it? But yeah, it will certainly, he'll make it a spectacle, won't he, in terms of a matchup. I won't lie and pretend I know much about Benfica as a side. At this point in time, I don't. All I'll say is it's a game Chelsea have to win. Not just because of recent results, but yeah, in this Champions League stage, you need to pick up points. You probably need, 8 games, 12 to 15 points to make sure you're in the hat for the next round. So yeah, the home games become incredibly important. And yeah, we having lost the first game, obviously we need to make sure we do win this one. What we're expecting team-wise, well, we don't think that Fofana will play, obviously, because he got concussed. I joked about it in the last pod after the Lincoln game. But yes, Jorgensen did actually concuss him, so that's fantastic. I think Trevor will play, won't he? Because obviously he'll be suspended for the Liverpool game anyway. My gut feeling says I could see Badiashile coming in alongside him. From what I saw at the weekend, I'd quite like to see Hato given another go, actually, because with 11 men, those two look like a good little partnership. That would be my preference, but we'll see. I really hope that the Andre Santos mistake doesn't set him back and cost him game time. I fear as it might. But again, I'd quite like to see, as I said earlier, him and Caicedo play together again. If not those two, then can Lavia play in there? We'll see. And then on the wings, again, like you said, Joe, Esteval feels like he keeps being the victim of going down to 10 men. He did enough, I thought, to warrant another start. I think Neto is the pick of the wingers on the other side. So, yeah, you wouldn't want to maybe change it too much. In reality, you're probably looking at trying to give Garnacho a start again, aren't you, at some point? So maybe he comes in, he's got Champions League experience, as has Gittins, to be fair. So maybe one of those two guys come in. And does he do something different in number 10? It feels unlikely, but I think there's quite a few of us who'd quite like to see João Pedro played in there, played off a front man. And yeah, whether it is a Mark Gui or he just hasn't given a kick yet, has he? Or obviously probably Tariq George, which is not our favourite option. But there's almost part of me, as much as I don't love seeing Tariq George play number 9, part of me would almost want to see it with João Pedro off him, just to see if we get a little bit more out of João Pedro, just because he's such a good player for us that, yeah, again, in this wish for Maresca to try something a bit different, maybe that's another one we can look at. But whatever happens, it's a big game. Chelsea have to win it, because that's all we're saying at the moment. But we'll be back to reflect on it this week afterwards, and then obviously build up to that bigger game against Liverpool next weekend. But yeah, thanks for sticking in with us. We're here. We will be here getting through this together. And as we like to say, and it feels like never a more appropriate moment to say this line, whatever happens, every little thing's going to be all right. Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be all right. Oh, and not that anyone cares, but as Joe asked earlier, I lost my game this weekend as well when I played, so a terrible weekend of football. We move on.